This is Inspector Toolbelt Talk.
Welcome back to Inspector Toolbelt Talk, everyone. So I wanted to introduce a special guest that I've really wanted to have on the show for a long time. His name is Richard Law. He is from SOFI, which is the Society of Field Inspectors. How are you, Rich?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm just happy to have you here. Couldn't have been more timely. I don't know if you keep an eye on what happens in the home inspection industry, but I gave you a little bit of an insight into it. Home inspection industry isn't as booming as it used to be. And a lot of us as home inspectors are looking for things to help us get through basically a miniature home inspection recession of things. Our businesses aren't as busy as we might like them. And I remember way back when that field inspections helped me and guys I was working with get through the Great Recession. And if done right, it was actually really a great gig. So that's why I'm super happy to have you on the show. But before I kind of yammer on here like I usually do, Rich, tell us a little bit about yourself and SOFI.
Okay, I can do that. Of course, I'm here in Florida. I'm here in the, I guess you call it the land of paradise. And I started out in the Navy and spent 20 years in the Navy as a naval flight officer and flew. And 20 years and travel around the U.S., travel around other countries. And actually, I spent about 10 years out of the country. And when you do that, you realize what a great country we do live in here in the United States. So I think that's important. While I was in the service, I was stationed at the Pentagon, and I picked up a real estate broker's license when I was there and worked with some investors on investment property. But then when I left the Navy, I went to work for computer sciences as a system engineer and worked on some Defense Department programs. After that, I went to a company called E-Systems, which was purchased by Raytheon, and again worked for other programs that were all defense related. Mm-hmm. And then when I left E-Systems, which was Raytheon then, I had my real estate license, my broker license, and I got more involved with that. So being a broker in real estate, I got very much involved with the home inspections, the home inspectors, and knew what they were doing and how they would help the buyers of real estate. I also got involved with doing some field inspections and some property preservation. And I did both of those because they were kind of related to, my real estate brokerage. And then I took in, while doing an inspection, someone said, "Hey, Rich, you know a lot about it. Why don't you just create a membership or create a database and get going with that?" So I did that back in the late 90s and just built it and built it and built it up. And today we've got about 8,500 members.
Oh, wow.
And we probably get a little over 50 members now just about every week. Membership's going up a little bit because the economy's slowing. People are just looking for ways to make some extra money. Notary signings are down. Less people are going to church, so we get some pastors that do field inspectors. If you look at home inspections in different areas, in the northern climates, it always slows down in the wintertime when it gets cold and snowy. So there's a slowdown there, and I know a lot of home inspectors that concentrate on field inspections during the cold winter months.
Maybe for our listeners, some of us know what field inspections are. I obviously do. I've done them for many years. We'll get into the bad connotation that they sometimes have, but just for the overall quick overview, what's a field inspection when we talk about that?
Well, it varies over a very, very large area. I once started to write down descriptions of all the inspections that were out there and got up to about 250. And just this week, I learned something new, and I do that pretty much every week. There's also an inspection that's done on the, the food trucks. Mm-hmm. The food trucks are out there, and they do a lot of cooking in the food truck. So they have, they have gas, they have electric, a lot of materials that come off the grill that are filtered out and go up into a filter usually. So there's cleaning schedules that have to be done. They have to be noted that they have been done. There has to be, manual pull-offs and stuff like that for gas in the truck, for propane if they're using it. So even with home inspections or mobile inspections, the same criteria from home inspections or the same criteria from something you would use in an Olive Garden works with a food truck.
Interesting. I had never really done a restaurant or a food truck in my time in field inspections. I did a lot of big commercial inspections, a lot of nursing homes and things like that. They used to pay me a couple $100 to take outside photos of a nursing home or something like that. It would take, half an hour on site. I usually do it in between inspections when I'm already out and things like that. And it worked out well. But I remember looking through the list and thinking, there's a lot more that I could be doing. And it sounds like there's a lot more now than there was even just 10, 15, 20 years ago. You were talking to me the other day about some sort of inspection in lumber yards. Were those fire takeoffs, or what did you call them?
Well, when you go into a lumber yard, you create a lot of dust. And a lot of people don't really understand how flammable that dust can be. So one of the biggest problems there is controlling sparks. And there you need special switches, special motors in the lumber yard so that you're not sparking, that someone can't throw on a light switch and blow up the sawmill. So those are a little bit different. I've never done one of those myself, but I have talked to a few people that have. And that's what I would call probably a very unique inspection. Probably your home inspectors may never run into one of those at all. In fields and services, there's I like to classify 3 different areas. There's commercial, there's insurance, there's mortgage. The best segment is probably commercial. Well, it's not probably, it is commercial. The worst segment is mortgage, and insurance is kind of in the middle. When I say insurance, I mean residential insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So in the mortgage area, and this has not changed in decades, the fees are very low. Even today, field inspectors are out doing what they call mortgage drive-by inspections, where they're knocking on doors, and those are paying $3, $4, $5.
Crazy.
It is. It's very crazy. It's very risky. When you knock on a door, you never know what's on the other side of a door, and a lot of people today are losing their homes, losing their vehicles because of the downturn through no fault of their own in many cases, and so knocking on a door is just not a good idea. So we purposely really exclude the mortgage inspections. Our database is set up with the hiring firms, at least, so that we don't get involved in that segment. And we can do that for the simple reason is membership in SOFI is free. It's free to the inspectors. It's free to the companies. So when something is free, we can really control it. Whether someone is listed in our database depends upon us and not them. If we know that they don't pay a lot, if they know that segment's got a really bad reputation, we can easily exclude them. If I started taking membership fees from companies, and, that becomes tougher. If someone's willing to pay me a big fee to become a member, a hiring company, it's kind of hard to turn them down. But when membership is free, it's very easy to turn down the companies that just don't have a good record and just don't pay a lot. And we get that through feedback from inspectors too. So that's kind of mortgage. It's the area you kind of want to stay away from. And you can go up to the Facebook groups and read story after story after story about low fees, people being chased, being tried to force them off the road, and just a lot of things going on there you don't want to get involved with.
Yeah, and I think, not to interrupt, but I think that's why a lot of us as home inspectors, we're charging $300 to $2,000, anywhere in that range for an inspection, depending on what we're doing. We'll do big commercial inspections, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So when we see things like, field inspectors make $3 for a visit or $5 for a visit, automatically turns off our brain to the option of doing that. It's almost like it hurts our pride, like, I'm a skilled inspector. Why would I do that? But I think before we get too far in, I think the point you made is important. Not every field inspection is created equal. And I think that's why I tended to like the commercial ones. They were actually kind of fun. I remember one building I was in, it was a big apartment building, and they had a big water incident. It was commercial/insurance. They paid me several $100s. I took some pictures, wrote down what I saw, and it was just fun. I'm like, I've not seen a defect like this, and normally wouldn't see it on that scale. I did one. It was a high-profile case in a city near me where the side of the brick building veneer started to fall off. So I took pictures, and they're like, "Oh, just write down, this or that." And I wrote down, "Hey, this looks like it's about to fall down." And not like 90 days later, it actually did fall down. And I'm just like, those are very interesting commercial experiences. And you know what? I wouldn't make as much as a home inspection. On average at the time, $175 to $200 an hour is what we shoot for. So I might like make $125 for an hour's worth of work. But when I'm slow and inspections are down, that was perfect. That was awesome. Not every inspection is going to be like that. Sometimes you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, I took this inspection and I made $50, but it's not the end of the world. But those $3 to $5 inspections, that's really what turns inspectors off.
Yeah, they would. But, sometimes you're going to run into the situation where they say, well, we have lots of inspections for you. They pay between $5 and $200. And then once you start talking to them, you find out that 99% of them pay $5 and 1% pay $200. So you got to be careful you don't get lured in, so to speak. And the best way to do that is just avoid the mortgage stuff. So let's move to the top.
Yes, sir.
If I were going to do it today, what would I do? Okay, knowing all the background for a couple of decades. I think, the commercial stuff is good. It's the best. It has a very large range, okay? There's a lot of stuff that you can do without having the technical background that you and your associates have. But just going out and doing something like a business verification, maybe a residential draw inspection, or what they call a progress report, maybe a lease inspection, maybe a collateral inspection. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of in the, I'd say probably the $40 to $60 range. And a lot of that stuff takes, maybe 10, 15 minutes on site. Something like a business verification would be easy to do, probably 10, 15 minutes. A draw inspections with, I think you've said you've done before, probably take 10 or 15 minutes on site and not a lot of photos. I've done commercial draw inspections where I took no photos, made no reports. I just called the company asking it and gave them a verbal report, which took about 5 minutes. So those are the kind of the very common ones that pay pretty well for a short amount of time on site, a short amount of little paperwork involved. And then once you start doing those, and the other part too is you can be going out tomorrow to do a home inspection. And if you could do a $50 inspection on the way there that takes 10 minutes and one on the way back that takes 15 minutes, you just put another $100 in your pocket.
Right, exactly. It's helping burning off overhead too, because maybe we're out marketing and we're visiting real estate offices to try to get home inspections. Okay, go visit 5 offices, then go do one of these inspections, then do a couple more, and then go do another inspection. And you kind of burned off your gas overhead for the day. Yeah,
so that doesn't require any real additional training because the company's going to provide you with the inspection form, and they're going to provide you some instruction. That may be on the telephone. Maybe they'll send you a video to watch. Maybe they'll invite you to a webinar. So those are good. Those are good for everyone because they don't require any training or expertise, so to speak. With home inspectors, you kind of have an advantage because you like to look at problems. Well, that's your whole job, really, is identifying problems.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you're looking at problems, okay? A little bit about electricity, electrical, and plumbing, and roofs, and flammable materials, combustibles, mold, mildew, all that stuff. So when you get into the higher level of commercial, there's 2 parts to it. I guess the part I've been most involved with is what they call commercial insurance loss control. And that's where you go into a commercial facility. It could be a very small one. It could be a dollar store. It could be a very large one. It could be a large Hilton hotel. And there you're not, what you're looking at is risk. You're looking at fire sprinkler systems. They need to be on. They need to be, if they're a wet system, they need to be pressurized. There are dry systems out there. I've never seen a dry fire sprinkler system, but there are dry ones. So you need to know a little bit about fire sprinkler systems. You need to know about ISO construction classes. What is the building ISO? Is it joisted masonry? Is it fire resistant? Because all that makes a big difference on fire damage.
Mm-hmm.
An insurance company looks at joisted masonry as a bigger risk than fire resistant.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So you're looking at ISO construction classes. You're looking at things like trip and fall hazards. You're looking at commercial cooking equipment. If you're going to a hotel or a restaurant that cooks, you need to know that. To give you an idea, I did the Radisson Hotel a number of times over in Cape Canaveral, Florida. We did it as part of training. Of course, we didn't have access to the whole hotel because we didn't ask, and we didn't want to let them know we were inspecting it. But there again, you can determine a lot of things from the fire sprinkler systems just by walking in rooms. You can determine how much of the area is covered by fire sprinkler systems. You can go out to the pool, which is an important thing to look at. And there you're looking at self-locking, self-closing gates. The pool at the Marriott in Cape Canaveral was not fully fenced. You could walk into the pool area from the street. They want to know about water depths. Are they marked on the side of the pool? Are there instructions on pool usage? Whenever I would go to a facility that had a pool, I'd ask them to provide me before I went there with a copy of a last county pool inspection. So I got an idea what the county thought of their pool. And you're just looking at so many different things that are technical. You're looking at wiring that you can see. You're not pulling the cover off of a circuit breaker panel. And there's other facilities you might go to. It could be a paint booth. And there you've got special requirements to look at. Again, you got the anti-sparking switches and breathing materials and storage of flammables. In any facility, you're looking at storage of flammables because of you can only store so much gasoline in a metal can. After a certain amount of time, if you got too many metal cans, they have to go into a locker. If you go to a manufacturing facility, you'll need to look at data sheets. So the top level commercial stuff require more training, but it's training like you guys have, is this is what's right and this is what's wrong. And once you know that, it's easy to identify.
But I think that's a good example of why, if we're a home inspector and we're feeling the effects of the economy right now, we should really consider field inspections. Because yeah, there's going to be the $25 to $50 drive by this business and make sure they're there, take a picture of this data plate, whatever. But it also opens up opportunity. Like I said, it opened up some great commercial opportunities that were just a ton of fun and gave me a lot of commercial experience. And at the time I was pushing into the commercial inspection market, and it was just invaluable. So if we're listening to this, I'd like to ask Rich this, because Rich, you're the president of SOFI. First of all, I guess my question is twofold. First of all, how do we get started? I imagine we would start off by going to sofi.us, so that's SOFI.us. And then where do we get our work from there? And then after that, how do we ensure that we're getting that good work that's really cool and interesting and pays well, and not just 8 million people spamming us asking us for $3 inspections?
Okay.
So that first one, how do we get started as a home inspector?
Well, there's a couple ways you can get to our website. You mentioned sofi.us. Mm-hmm. And the other way is just go to fieldinspector.com. Mm-hmm. Fieldinspector.com. And up at the top of the page, you'll see a button up there that says Join SOFI. Mm-hmm. Membership is free. Just fill out the online form. There's a lot of other information up there on that front page. We have a lot of YouTube videos, which will explain to you the different types of inspections that are out there, what they're all about. It'll kind of walk you through some of the inspections so that you feel more comfortable in knowing what they're about. We have a lot of information up there on the best ways to do marketing, how to, get connected with the better companies. Mm. There's some podcasts up there, audios. They're really not podcasts, they're audio training, which will say, if you call a company, who to ask for in the company, questions to ask, the order in which to ask questions. So there's a lot of information up there just to kind of bring you up to speed on what field inspections is all about. Help you decide if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. It does look very easy to set up. So home inspector, I go to fieldinspector.com or sophie.us. Click on the big red button that I'm looking at, and it says Join Now. Fill out the form. But it sounds like that's not it. I think I see people just thinking, okay, I joined. Now what? But you talked about marketing. Who are you marketing to? And how does that happen?
Okay, you're going to be marketing to the best companies out there, at least the best ones that we know about. We have a database. Okay, like I say, we got about 8,500 plus field inspectors in there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are part-time. We also list about 80 companies that hire inspectors.
Mm.
And these companies are national companies that cover the whole U.S., all 50 states, plus they cover Guam, the Mariana Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so it's about 80 of those. And they're pretty much all commercial with some residential. And I think there's one mortgage in there. So it's pretty much aimed to the high side.
Nice.
And those are the companies that home inspectors are going to contact by email or calling and introducing themselves. They can also go up to their website and look at, more detailed information up there from the company on what they do and what they're looking for. So that's the list that we have, so to speak. It's in paper. It's printed. We mail it out. It's called the National Field Service Directory, and that's up at the Sophie store. Everything that we offer, of course, has a satisfaction guarantee, so there's no risk.
So that part you would pay for. So
you would pay for that.
Okay, cool. So that makes sense. So I joined Sophie. I could pay for this directory, but just joining Sophie, those 80 companies, I imagine, are looking through the directory, and I may be in an area that they're like, oh, hey, we need a guy over there. Oh, it's a home inspector. Perfect. They may have qualifications that we need. Is that basically what?
Well, what we do is we have of course, our database,
mm-hmm.
and we can segment that into field reps that cover a metro area and field reps that cover a statewide area. Okay, so we have that information. Like I say, it's about 8,500. Many of the companies, not all of them, get that database from us. Okay, they order it in a PDF download.
Gotcha.
And it's a searchable download. And we give that same field rep database to everyone that buys a directory, field reps, because the database is very important for networking. I've talked to field inspectors. In fact, I've talked to a lot of them that have never talked to another field inspector. And that's really a big loss for them. Same thing with home inspectors. You probably have some home inspectors out there that probably never talked to a home inspector, another one.
Yeah, it happens.
And that's a good idea. In some cases, you don't want to be talking to people in your area that are home inspectors. Well, you could talk to them, but you don't want to share information on how you're getting your work. You don't want to give them the good ideas, so to speak.
Oh, I do all the time, but I'm a weirdo. This whole podcast is about telling everybody what I do.
But with that database that they get of field inspectors with the directory. And that's, I'm here in Florida. What I do and what could do and everyone could do is I can contact a field inspector in San Diego or a field inspector in Seattle or Dallas or Boston. And I would start the conversation on the phone. I would contact them by phone. And I would say, hello, my name is Richard Law. I'm a field inspector here in Central Florida. And I see that you're in San Diego. And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit since we don't compete with each other. And maybe I can share some of my good information with you. And you could share some of your good information with me. And let's say I'm a home inspector, okay? Well, I can search for those people that are doing field inspections far away. And I can also search on the keyword like home inspector, and there are some in there that do home inspections a long distance away. And again, if you got a home inspector or a field inspector in Seattle or Boston or Cleveland, you can share information because you don't compete.
Right.
And it's just so much more you learn doing that.
Well, the home inspection community is actually, I consider us pretty close-knit for the most part. There are home inspectors that are kind of like a little standoffish, just like in any other industry. But for the most part, we actually communicate quite a bit. And I imagine that would probably be a benefit when it comes to field inspections. So maybe we work for a company. So maybe we put forth the effort. We joined Sophie and we called a couple of companies and we get some great commercial work out of it. But they have something that comes up in Ohio and we're out in Maine. Hey, I know a guy out in Ohio. Maybe he can join Sophie and he can help you out with those inspections. I imagine stuff like that probably happens quite a bit.
You can do that. And what I'm also finding too is there was a good article up at Zero Hedge that talks about gig workers. And what they're seeing now with the economy worsening is more and more people are looking for the backup to the backup to the backup to the backup.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've been both employed as an employee and I've also worked as an independent contractor. And when you're an independent contractor, you need a backup to the backup to the backup to the backup. I mean, I know a guy down in Dallas who has a chicken legs set up down there where he delivers fried chicken, not chicken legs, chicken wings, fried chicken wings. Okay.
I was wondering what was happening there.
he works half the day managing his restaurant there and the other half of the day out doing some inspections. So if you're an independent contractor, the notary signing agents is another group, and the realtors is another group. They've all been slowed down because of rising interest rates. There's less refinances going on. There's less home buying going on. So we're seeing more and more notary signing agents and home inspectors and realtors looking at field inspections. In fact, the National Notary Association, which is a large notary association, there are the tens of thousands of members. They promote Sophie up there.
Nice.
Because they want to take and keep their members. They want to keep them busy. They can't keep them as busy as they'd like to keep them, so they find us to help keep them busier, okay, and to keep them around, okay, which is important. There's a group out in Omaha called NPI, which is kind of like a mini training facility for home inspectors. As part of their training, they teach their inspectors about field inspections. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the other, training organizations don't start doing a little bit more training on field inspections to kind of bring the home inspectors into another area.
Yeah, and like I said, it not only helps us get by in tight times, but it opens up opportunities. So I remember I was inspecting a hotel once, and then it got around that, hey, we have a commercial inspector that can do hotels and motels and all this stuff. And I ended up inspecting a lot of hotels and motels on my own and also with these other companies. I like doing it with the other companies because I'm like, all right, here's a few $100 for, an hour or two's worth of work. I would do a hotel or motel on myself and it'd be several $1,000s and sometimes several days, It just created opportunity, you know what I mean? So I think it's something that we should, as a home inspection industry, get out of our mind. Like you said, Rich, get those $5 inspections, not even in the arena. Go for the good stuff. And you never know. If it helps us get through these tough times, cool. If not, maybe next winter, maybe it'll help us get through that tough time. Or maybe we get injured and we can't climb up on roofs for a few months. Can we supplement that with some drive-by inspections from, Sophie and things like that?
Yeah, you can. And you can also move to higher levels too.
Yeah.
The companies you're going to be working for that we are affiliated with are kind of middleman. Mm-hmm. They're working for the big insurance companies, the Hartfords and all them. So you're in the middle, so you get less money. But over a period of time, it may take you a couple of years even, you can start breaking away from those middlemen and start working for the big, really highly protected properties. Mm-hmm. And move to higher levels where you're working directly for an underwriter. Now, the person I got all my training from was a fellow by the name of Jim Julian. And he worked at ISO. He taught at ISO. This guy really knows commercial insurance loss control. And he does the big, highly protected properties, the big properties in Manhattan. He'll do light manufacturing facilities. He's traveled for underwriting companies over to Europe and Asia. He's really known for his experience, and he's really highly needed because if you got a big property, you want to make sure you're covering everything. Mm-hmm. And I was working with him, and I've got his training, by the way, on video and manually printed and on PDFs up at our Sophie store. But the thing was with him, he would share a lot of information with me on how much he was making, what he was doing to make more money. And he would show me some of his reports that he did. So I can remember one report, and I says, how much did you get paid for this? And he says, well, I got paid about $8,000 for it. I says, wow. I said, that's good money. He says, well, that, I was 2 days on site doing the inspection, and I was 3 days writing up the report. So it was $8,000 over a week. It wasn't a day.
Still, that's a good week.
So it's still not bad money. Yeah. So that's what the commercial insurance loss control is all about. And you could be doing a Motel 6, you could be doing an Olive Garden, you could be doing a Dollar General. I've done some Hampton Inns, I've done some of the bigger hotels. And they start getting easier too, the more you do them, the more you learn about them.
Yeah.
For me to go to a Hampton hotel, I would ask for information before I got there. I would like to look at any of other inspections that the county did. I would want to know their vacancy rates. I would also tell them, say, hey, listen, I'm going to be there at such a time. I need you to have one of your maintenance people there that's going to be with me the whole time I'm there if I need them and be available to answer questions. If you've got floor plans of your facilities with the Hampton up in Fredericksburg, they had 3 big buildings. I need to know a little bit about your fire services up there, where your nearest fire department is. So I would get them to feed a lot of information to me, okay? And then I would go up there and do the inspection. And I would use the maintenance people there to, look at roofs, to look at laundry services. I would go in and look at a couple rooms, maybe 3 rooms. I would always pick the room. I never let anyone else pick the room because I didn't want someone to show me their best, okay? Mm-hmm. I'd look at the fire sprinkler systems. Oftentimes, I would sit in their coffee place there and at least do a part of my report in there in case I had questions when I was going through it. And drink their coffee and eat their Krispy Kreme donuts in the Hampton Inn, which was nice. It's nice to have a little sugar in your system when you're writing a report.
Yeah, definitely.
And so those are, fairly easy once you get going. And you go through the same thing again and again and again. And you have all your boilerplate material on recommendations. The same thing like home inspections.
Yep, exactly.
You do one, you've got all that stuff written up. You see it, you just copy that information and paste it. And the expertise comes in identifying it and solving the problem.
Yeah, so I think that's a good illustration of why it's a good field for home inspectors, because that's what we do. We call them canned comments. We identify issues. Yeah,
but with field inspections, it's when you start out, you're kind of learning on a job, in a lot of different areas. Mm-hmm. But in some of the things, like I said, those $50, $60 inspections, and some of them are priced by the item. You could go to a John Deere dealership and do a floor plan inspection. I used to go out to a dealer for commercial construction equipment. He had graders and loaders and backhoes. I would go out there to take and see what was on the floor, what he'd sold, what was out on demo, and everything had to be documented. They wanted to have the hours on the machines. If something was out on demo, I wanted a record of who had it. And then you go back and forth and you do that same inspection probably every couple months. The first time I went out there and did it, the manager called me in the office and he said, hey, he says, you're eating up a lot of our time because, there are no more analog hour meters on this equipment. You have to turn the machine on. And here's what we're going to do. He says, I'm going to give you these 3 keys. You're going to be able to turn on every piece of equipment that we have here in the dealership. He says, you're not going to be able to, he says, you can start them with these keys, but you're not going to start them. He says, if you start one, he says, that's going to be the end of our relationship. He says, you just turn on the ignition to get the hours and turn it off. He says, here's what we're going to do it this way. When you leave here, you take these 3 keys with you. When you come back, you bring the 3 keys with you. And he says, call me the day before you're going to come back so I know you're coming. And when you arrive, walk in the dealership and let us know you're there. So that was great.
Nice.
That was so easy.
Yeah.
And I did that every month, or not every month, but every 2 months for years. And so they knew me, I knew them, and it paid pretty well.
So I think that's a good illustration, too, of your experience there, that it can be a great career. It can be a side gig, and it can be a great career, and it can lead to nice situations like that. Not everything is, running out in the rain and snow and wind and taking pictures of strange things. It's, cool commercial inspections, cool niche inspections, and things like that. But Rich, I tell you what, this has been fantastic information. I really think the home inspection industry as a whole, we need to hear this right now. And hopefully you get some people that'll be calling you. If you go to the contact us page on sophie.us, Rich's phone number is right there. You can sign up right there, and I can vouch for the program. I've been on it. It works great. Single inspector firms, multi-inspector firms. It's a great way to get through this economy.
And we also do a lot of resumes for home inspectors that are involved with field inspections too. You got a copy of the resume we just did for that Tampa home inspector, right? Yeah.
I saw that. It's a very nice resume.
So you might want to share that with some of your associates there.
Yeah. So if you need a resume to send to these companies that you're calling, Rich sent me a copy of one that I made for a home inspector recently, and it was beautiful. So you can order that right on sophie.us as well. So Lots of resources. Spend some time there. If you have time this winter, rifle through that whole website, join, and give it some time. Don't just knock it out at the beginning saying, no, this isn't going to work for me. Thank you again, Rich.
Okay, well, take care. And like I say, get out there and start building up another side business. Things may slow down more in 2023, so just kind of be ready.
Thank you. Great advice.
On behalf of myself, Ian, and the entire ITB team, thank you for listening to this episode. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can catch our future episodes as well. And if you have any feedback, please send us an email at info@inspectortoolbelt.com. Also, don't forget to check out our brand new app for home inspectors, scheduling and report writing all in one easy-to-use app. Check it out now at inspectortoolbelt.com.